Josh said something on the wrap-up show actually last night that we'll play here in just a moment, but all I can really say is I think this is one of the most ridiculous penalties in the history of Formula racing, in the history of the FIA, and that's saying something given some of the penalties that we've seen handed down. But Joe, if you don't mind, I'd like to play what Josh had to say for us on the wrap-up show Sunday evening.
It's not her fault because the FIA have put a board directly where the checkered flag is. So when you wave the flag, you can't see it from the cockpit. And even worse, it was windy. And the person waving the flag didn't do what I would do and properly wave it, just went up and down. So it's blowing straight in the wind, going up and down. You couldn't see it. And then by the time she came around for the second lap, they weren't there. They'd all left the race control building. So there was no one there to press the red flag button. There was no one there to tell them already. It was a complete mess. And to be fair, I don't think you should be given a penalty for winning the race twice. It's not on. It's the FIA's fault, and that should be a sporting penalty or a financial penalty, not something that affects her on track for their stewarding mistakes. Honestly, it's ridiculous.
Well, there you go. I mean, I don't think I have too much more to add there. The only thing I can say is if there was going to be any penalty at all, and I think I said this on Sunday night as well, maybe a reprimand. Maybe just, meet with her in the steward's room after the race and say like, hey, what happened, and go through the miscommunications and try to make sure it doesn't happen again. But I mean, I don't understand why I needed to go any further than that, and to penalize her 20 seconds and drop her all the way down to 9th place when, Joe, you mentioned it, you look at the pace and you look at how she handled the race weekend, absolutely dominant, should be far and away the championship favorite, and to only be third in points following this weekend because of this penalty, I think is incredibly harsh. And the punishment does not fit the crime, so to speak, if you can even call it a crime, because again, we've seen far more egregious incidents on track get 5-second penalties or 10-second penalties. To be penalized 20 seconds and almost dropped out of the points entirely for something like this is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. Ben and Josh both explained it pretty well. Josh went into a lot of the details as well. All I'm going to say is that, my first reaction was that I was extremely shocked because this was ridiculous. It was extremely unfair. She won the race, and then the penalty was so extreme that it brought her down to 9th place. And then after that, I was just really disappointed. I feel like it was an extremely unfair penalty for her. And as Ben pointed out, I feel like the most harsh penalty that they should have given her, not even a penalty, is just a reprimand. The 20-second penalty is just insane. It's really unfair, and I don't know why they really went through with that.
I still, hearing she took the checker flag twice is the penalty. It just sounds so weird. Like, as long as they don't give her double points for taking it twice, I don't see why it should really be that big of a penalty. It's just mind-boggling, but FIA, I mean, yeah, it's unanimous. And I think so many people, it's just so much for just a mistake. Could easily be preventable. The stewards, they could have done a better job. Just a tough break. And of course, we'll see what happens to her.
And Joe, just real quick, maybe the only other thing I could think of is maybe a fine for the team. If you investigate the situation and it's clear that they saw the checkered flag and they failed to communicate with their driver, then, a fine from a team, I think, would be something that's understandable here. But to penalize the driver so many points and impact the championship like this, I think is incredibly far too harsh.